Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we're going to be talking about the fact that Brandon Ingram is smart and he's going to be waiting till next offseason to discuss his contract extension with the Pelicans. He wants to stay in New Orleans, but similar to Jaylen Brown last year could have signed his extension, but it only would have been worth like $150 or $60 million, something like that. And because he made All-NBA, that deal was now a 5-year, $300 million deal. Now, Brandon Ingram, if he were to sign an extension this offseason, he can sign for 3 years for a combined total of $147 million. But if Brandon Ingram were to make an All-NBA team, he would become eligible for the supermax extension at 35% of the salary cap. Obviously, Ingram has to play at least 65 games this season, which, is something he hasn't been able to do regularly. But what we know is that his maximum contract would go from a 3-year, $147 million deal to potentially a 4-year, $221 million extension if he waits until next offseason and doesn't even make an All-NBA team. And if he makes the All-NBA team, it becomes $334 million over 5 years. So let's get right into it. So I want to hear your thoughts down below. What do you think? Brandon Ingram is eligible for a contract extension with the New Orleans Pelicans, but he will wait until next offseason before engaging in the discussion. Brandon Ingram is owed $33.8 million this season and $36 million next season. Ingram is currently able to extend right now for 3 years for a maximum combined total of $147 million. Let me hear your thoughts down below, and let's get right into today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe if you want to get daily updates and just, learn about basketball. I try to teach people. I'm an NBA credentialed reporter. I have sources in the NBA. I go to NBA events, and I run a scouting service providing, scouting decks and players for G League and overseas teams. So, having signed a 5-year contract back in 2020, Brandon Ingram is now becoming, veteran extension eligible. And Christian Clark of NOLA.com said Ingram's going to wait until 2024 to explore a new deal. And that's regardless of making an All-NBA team or not, because the decision isn't related to his desire to remain in New Orleans long term. He wants to be in New Orleans, but it's more simply due to the fact that he'll be eligible for a more lucrative extension next offseason than he is now, especially if he makes the All-NBA team. With the organization has no anxiety about the team not being able to discuss an extension this year because it makes financial sense. Like I said, he's going to earn $33.8 million this year, and then he'll make $36 million next year. If he signed an extension right now, it would only be 3 years, $147 million. But if we assume the 10% salary cap increases for each of the next 2 seasons, that would work out that the 25 to 26 cap is going to be $160 million, and he could sign for 30% of that. And if Ingram waits until next offseason to sign a new contract, his maximum extension would increase to a projected $221 million for 4 years. So instead of a 3-year, $147 million deal, he makes almost $80 million more with an additional year, and is right now the level 55 games and makes an All-NBA team, becomes supermax eligible like Jaylen Brown did, and that gives him a maximum extension of $334 million for 5 years, again based on that 10% cap increase. Now, there's no guarantee that the Pelicans will be willing to make that deal, but the fact that Ingram could lock in significant more guaranteed money by waiting explains why there's no rush to sign an extension right now, because the moment opening night arrives next month, Ingram will be ineligible to sign an extension until June. I think it's the start of the offseason. I think it's June 30th. But an All-NBA season is probably, a long shot for a guy who's only made one All-Star team through 7 years. But the fact that you have to play 65 games could open up the door for him, because Ingram himself hasn't played more than 65 games since 2017. And that was literally almost 7 years ago, and he's 26. So, he has averaged last year 24.7 points, 6 assists, 5.5 rebounds in 45 games last year, playing 34% in the field, 39% from 3, and 88% from the field. So, Brandon Ingram, still that dog, but it's more so like, I think the problem people are suggesting is like, hey man, like you're good and all, but the best ability is availability, they always say. I think that's the argument right now that people are having. But if you guys are a Brandon Ingram fan, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Would you pay him right now? I think it's like a legit argument to have, like, not even the start discourse. It's just like, hey, is it worth paying him all this money if he has an all NBA season next year? Like, would you give him the $334 million? I think that's where it becomes a little hard. I'll admit. I don't know what I would do. I'll be the first one to admit it. I have no idea what I would do. $334 million a year for Brandon Ingram's a really tough pill to swallow, if I had to say so myself. Like, that's not like a drop in the bucket. No, that's like the whole fucking bucket. And like, I mean, Brandon Ingram is more of your leader than I know Zion Williamson is. So I get that carries weight and is a large part of like why that would happen or why it's feasible to believe. Because I think it's, and I don't know, what do you guys think? Am I wrong for thinking that, hey, they might, this is something that people should realize is probably a lot more feasible than they think. And I think with more and more time, we'll find out if Brandon Ingram is going to be on this team when this season ends. I mean, you got Trey Murphy. You just paid Herb Jones. Are you going to pay our man, Mr. Zion Williamson? Like, or is this, if you pay Brandon Ingram, does that mean Zion's going to get traded? That's what I want to know. Where does this go? Where does this lead? So I'm definitely interested to hear your guys' opinions on the whole thing, as I definitely think it's something we need to just pay attention to with everything that's going on right now. But I am on the camp that I hope that we get to continue to see, Brandon Ingram right now, and that it's not going to be anything like in terms of he's just going to go missing. I don't think that's going to happen, but I know that a lot of people are going to say that, oh, he's not reliable. I think he's a guy that you can rely on. But I understand, like, the frustration that, you want a guy who's going to be there, day in and day out, and it's not going to be a struggle to know if he's going to be there or if you can rely on him, playing every single game. That those are concerns teams have, and I think that's where we're with Brandon Ingram, that people are hesitant if he is going to be a guy that you can consistently rely upon. So that's where I understand the gripe that people have. So let me hear your thoughts down below. That's it from me. Peace out. Dude, I'm trying to end this video.